Welcome to my channel. This is my first ever YouTube video on this channel. Hi, I'm Remy. If you've clicked on my video, you probably want some book recommendations. But I just wanted, before we get into the video, I just wanted to say that my channel is so that I can have my own little book club, basically. Little book community. Because none of my friends read and I need people to talk to about books. So if you desperately need people to talk to about books, or you just love talking about books to other people, subscribe and put all of your feelings about any books that I talk about in the comments, because I love reading other people's opinions on books that I like, because everyone reads in a different lens, because everyone's experiences life differently. So obviously you're going to read the book differently. So let's get into my book recommendations. I have 9 books. I know that's kind of a low number for like book videos like this, but I don't really have a lot of books physically, really, and any that I've read like recent that I can talk about. There are some books that I've read recently that aren't in this stack, and that's because they're going to be in my July wrap up. So I've read 2 books this month so far. I know we're on like the 10th right now, and usually people have read like 5 books by now, but I don't like to worry about the numbers. I just like to read when I want to, so reading doesn't become boring or like a task to me, because I like to read for my enjoyment. So anyways, let's get into the book recommendations. I'm going to do this from least to best. So this video is based off my 3.5 stars and up. And then I'm going to do an opposite video of my books I don't like and why, and that's going to be my 3 stars and down. First, I'm going to be talking about The Lullaby by Sarah Dessen. I like Sarah Dessen. I love her writing. She is a very well-known romance author, but this specific book didn't hit as hard as another book that I read about her from her. And I don't know if it was because I just didn't like some of the things the characters done. I read this a little while ago, so not everything isn't fresh in my mind, but basically it's about this girl. She lives with her mom. Her mom is single. Her dad was this like hit artist dude, one-hit wonder, about a song called This Lullaby, and it was about her when she was a baby, but she never grew up with her dad because her dad like ran off or whatever. And so the song is still really popular, so she still hears it as like an almost 20-something-year-old. And her mom is getting remarried for like the 10th time, and she ends up meeting this guy. I can't remember the dude's name. Oh, the girl's name is Remy. I forgot. Remy is the main character, and the dude's name is something with Dexter. That's his name. I think I just didn't like the name. The dude was kind of awkward, fumbly, I guess. I don't know. I gave it 3.5. Like, I would recommend it. It's a good read. It's just, there's just some things about it that didn't hit like normal romance books do for me. And this is my last book in my 3.5 stars. Our Chemical Hearts by Crystal Sutherland. This is the only book I've written by her. I love the cover, and by the way, ignore the jacket. I can't tell if you can tell how wrinkly it is, but I beat up my jackets, guys. I only put it on for the video. I usually only take care of the actual book and the hardcover, and I just throw the jackets somewhere because I like the hardcover actual book better than the jacket. Our Chemical Hearts, kind of how I feel about the same one. Like, it's a good book. It's a good read. I would recommend it to anyone. But there are just some points that just don't hit for me. Like, when I bought this book when I had friends that read, and this girl read the end of like the end chapter, like the last line of the book, to see if the 2 love interests would get together, because she only liked reading romance books where the ending was happy. So in the end of this book, if you're like one of those people, they don't end up together. Like, I guess if you don't want to know anything about the book, then I would suggest skipping and act like you didn't hear what I just said. But this is a kind of sad love story, tragic love story. They don't end up getting together. It's in the guy's point of view. It's like guy meets mysterious girl type of thing. Basically meets this girl, she's still hung up on her ex-boyfriend, and she kind of like uses him, sort of. So yeah, just read it for yourself. Just know that they do not end up together in the end, and it's kind of a sad love story. I still enjoyed the characters. Again, there's just some points that didn't hit for me, so this was a 3.5 out of 5 stars. So we're getting into my 4-star reads now. First, this is one that I read recently, so like it's kind of fresh in my mind and I remember it and I like it. Dating You, Hating You by Christina Lauren. So Christina Lauren, I figured out, is like one of my new favorite authors. They're a duo authors. I love their writing. Their characters are always just so good. Like, so I don't know if you've read any books where the characters have like no personality and they're just kind of like bleh. Like, you don't really care that much about the character. But I love these characters, them two, and I love their chemistry. And this book kind of seems like it would be enemies to lovers, but it's kind of almost lovers to enemies to lovers. So basically, this girl, I think her name is Eleanor, someone with Evie. Her name is her nickname is Evie, and her real name is like some name, I don't want to say Evangeline because it's not that. Evie and Carter meet at a party. And okay, so if you don't want to know anything about the book, the meet at the party part is literally in the first 2 chapters. It's their meet cute. So that's not anything spoily. I'm not going to say anything spoily, but if you literally want to know nothing about the book when you go into it, just skip over this. Evie and Carter meet at a party. It's some dress up party. Mind you, they're like, she's like 33 and he's like 28. At first I was like, why is a grown people going to like a costume party? Like, it kind of made it feel college-y, like very young adult-esque. But it made more sense that she was going to a friend's party, and it would these 2 guys, it's Michael and what's her name? I think it's Michael and Rebecca. I can't remember the names, but they ended up getting married and having a kid like young. So, and they still want to feel young, and they're like 27, I guess. So they still want to feel young, so they have like a costume party and invite all their friends over. But it's like one of those parties that don't really stay out too late, and they're not like too crazy. They just kind of talk and drink booze. They have the same job. They're both in like the talent agency in like California, so they like scope out talent and discover talent and whatever. So they're both in the same industry and have crazy hours. So they both say that even though they hit it off and they have a lot of good chemistry, they would never date each other or like have any relationship with each other because it would be insane to be able to date them because they're like workaholics basically. And they work for 2 different companies or whatever, and then a week later or whatever, their companies merge. And so they end up having to work in like close proximity. So like, I guess it's supposed to be like close proximity enemies to lovers, but they just work in the same building. And then they end up having to compete for the same job. So then, even though they like have so much chemistry and like sexual tension, like they want to be together, but they're like competing for the same job and they have crazy hours and they just never commit to someone that like has crazy hours or whatever. Kind of reminds me of The Hating Game. I read this before I read The Hating Game though. That is going to be my July wrap up. I'm going to talk about that later. But this is kind of, in my opinion, a better version of The Hating Game. How The Hating Game should have went. I know people are going to hate me for that, but that's just my opinion. I really like this book, 4 stars. Love Christina Lauren so much. The Paperweight by Meg Haston. So trigger warnings, please read the trigger warnings before you read this book. And trigger warning just right now because I'm going to talk about it a little bit. So obviously Paperweight, by the title you can probably tell that this is a book about eating disorders and like weight loss and recovery, stuff like that. So this girl basically has an eating disorder, and like her mom left her family, like it's just her brother and her dad, and because her mom left like out of the blue, just left. And then so her dad's been like super like depressed since then, and so and like she's been having her eating disorder and having issues with food, and she feels like nobody's noticing and whatever, but she also doesn't really care nobody's noticing because she doesn't want them to have to like make her eat. So she's like struggling with the loss of her brother. She believes in her heart that she killed her brother, and then you actually figure out what happened that night that her brother died. She goes through this whole recovery journey. It's a very interesting book. But yeah, I really liked it. I like books in this type of like psychological fiction, I guess would be under this title, which comes in right into my next book too, because it's the same type of genre. But yeah, 4 to 5 stars. I love the Paperweight, love the writing. So, Girl in Pieces by Kathleen Glasgow. I like Kathleen Glasgow's writing. I loved the characters in this. Oh my god, this book's upside down. That's how you know I just threw the jacket on. Trigger warning for this book, please. I read the trigger warnings. I'm also about to talk about the book, so trigger warning there as well. If you want to skip, I'll put the timestamp on each part that I say skip, so you can skip to that timestamp so you don't have to like accidentally hear anything. But this book is about suicide and self-harm. Obviously you could probably tell by just the cover that that's what that is about. This girl named Charlotte, but she goes by Charlie throughout the entire book. And I also read this a little while ago. I'd read it and then I'd stop and I'd put it down for like months, and then I'd pick it back up and reread it. So a lot of it's kind of fuzzy, but I did like this book. Charlie ends up, her mom doesn't want her, like she just doesn't want to deal with her or something. So she ends up getting like kicked out of her house, so she like leaves her house, and she ends up being homeless and being under a bridge, and she runs into these dudes, and then she becomes friends with them because they like save her from some guy, and so she starts to trust them, and then they have like a house that they all stay in, like a bunch of different like homeless people, I guess. It's like I guess it's like a crack house or something, because the dudes were on drugs, and then the guy that owns the house that like sells them drugs and whatever tried to do stuff to Charlie, so then she tried to off herself there. So then the guys found her like halfway like dead basically in the attic, and they drop her off at a rehabilitation center and like mental health place or whatever. They drop her off there, and like she doesn't want to be there, and she doesn't talk for the majority of the thing. Again, everything I'm saying is literally in the beginning of the book. You learn all of this. Like, this book isn't in chapters, kind of. It like is like this. It would be, oh, please focus. Okay, be the line at the top, and then just like a little bit of text, and then like continue. Oh my god, my camera's gonna die. Okay, I have 3 books left, so I'm gonna try and speed through this. Okay, focus, focus, focus. Okay, thank you. This is Girl in Pieces, 4 to 5 stars. Really did like it. Next book, Just Listen. This is a romance book by Sarah Dessen. Again, Sarah Dessen is a great romance author. I read this book so long ago. Annabelle and this dude get together, and they're in high school, and like he's like a loner, and he's always listening to music. So then she sees she sees him, and they start listening to music together, and that's how they bond, is through music. And they like don't want to say that they're dating, but they're kind of dating. It's a whole thing, and then they end up, so I think there's a miscommunication like trope in here, or like he like cheats or something. I don't remember, but something happens and they break up, and then they get back together at the end. So there you go. That's just listen, 4 to 5 stars. So now we're getting into my 5-star reads. This is my favorite fucking book. I love it so much. I don't want to say my favorite book, but I love this book so much. Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. This is my first Christina Lauren book, and I'm so glad it was because I love this book to death. If you don't know that this book exists and you haven't heard about this book, you're living under a rock, okay? So Macy and Elliot. It's like a friends to lovers, a lovers to friends to lovers, or lovers to enemies to lovers, or something. I don't know what specific trope it's under, but they used to date when they were younger, and then something happened and they broke up and they didn't speak for like 10 years or something. So it goes back and forth between from when they were younger to now, and then they start like rekindling their whatever. You just figure out why they get together, or why they didn't speak to each other, and why they didn't speak to each other in this really made me freaking cry so bad. And seeing people annotate their books make me want to go back and annotate this book, because there's so many quotes in here that I love, like parts that made me cry. This book is just great. Just read it. 5 stars. Just read it, please. Pick it up. Go get it on Kindle. I don't know. Just fucking read it, man. This isn't my last book, but this is my second to last book. Out of the Easy by Ruta Sepetys. So this book I read a long time ago, so I don't remember the like a few years ago, but I don't remember the names. I don't remember the names, but there's a love triangle in here and I love it. It's not like the best love triangle in the world, but it was my first book that I ever read with a love triangle, and I was kind of obsessed with it when I was younger. When I say younger, I mean like high school. You kind of know who she's going to pick, so it's not like that great of a love triangle where it's like hard to choose. But she does end up picking someone in the end. Her mom's a hooker or something. She gets paid to clean the brothel, and she like moved out of her mom's house when she was like 14 because she didn't want to be with her mom anymore, and she ended up she ended up working at this bookstore to be able to live in the apartment above the bookstore. So like the owner like lets her live in the apartment above the bookstore as long as she's working at the bookstore. So she works at a bookstore, and she also cleans the brothel in the mornings for money. But something happens and she ends up having to run away to a cabin in like the middle of the woods so people can't find her. Because I can't remember, I think someone's trying to kill her or something. I don't remember, but that ends up happening. So yeah, it's a really good read. So my last book is also by Ruta Sepetys. I'm gonna have a picture on the side. It's called Between the Shades of Grey. No, it is not 50 Shades of Grey. It is Between the Shades of Grey. It is a historical fiction, and it is a masterpiece, and I love it to death. I had to read it in 8th grade for English class, and I read it in 2 days, and I'm pretty sure that book had like 45 chapters in it, or like, actually let me look up how many chapters were in that book. Oh, 85 chapters. I read this book in 2 days for a project. So I was supposed to have a week, but I ended up not being able to get the book until like 2 days. 2 days later. So I had 3 days to read the 85 chapter book and write a book report on it. So I read it in 2 days, and then I wrote a book report on it. But this book is it's set in World War II. With this little girl who is Russian, and she's in Poland. She ends up getting imported to Poland because of Stalin or something. It just talks about what happens to the citizens, what happened to the citizens of Russia and like Poland in World War II, because they were all like imported to like camps to like work and stuff. So it's basically this little girl's journey of how that happened and all the tragedies that happened. It is a sad book, but it is so good. It is so good. I love it so much. I love her writing, and she's also a Russian American author. And I think if you read, okay, so my camera just died, and my phone's about to die, so I'm gonna do this quick. But if you read in the about the book or about the author or something, I think it says that these stories are based off of her Russian grandmother's stories. Like this story was based off that. I could be so wrong, but I think that's what it said, because I think we talked about it in class. But that is it for this video. I hope you liked my recommendations. They're kind of, I feel like a lot of them are kind of popular recommendations, so you've probably already seen them or you probably already read them. but I hope you got a good read out of this. If you read the books and you have your own opinion about them, then put them in the comments, because I love seeing other people's opinions about books. So yeah, that's it. Subscribe, like, share with a friend if you want, you know.